In the late 18th century, in the quiet village of Brambleton, a small rural settlement tucked away in the rolling hills of Westshire, lived Edwin Carver and his devoted, much older sister Margaret. Their humble life was defined by hard work, quiet routine, and a shared resilience that bound them together. Edwin had once apprenticed as a tailor, following in his father's footsteps, but the call of adventure had led him to enlist as a soldier. Many years on the battlefield left him scarred and weakened. Returning home, he bore the heavy cost of his service in both body and spirit. For decades after his return, Edwin struggled with the lingering effects of war. Margaret, who was 15 years his senior, took on the role of both caretaker and confidant. Their days were marked by simple routines, long walks along the country lanes, quiet evenings by the hearth, and the gentle hum of village gossip. Neighbors often recalled Edwin's warm smile despite the slow, painful gait with which he moved. But as time wore on, his ailments grew worse. The once proud soldier now found his movements labored by rheumatism, and even the smallest exertion could leave him breathless. On one particularly radiant summer afternoon in 1792, the village basked in a rare, golden warmth. Margaret had prepared Edwin's favorite garden chair, an antique wooden seat placed on a modest stone patio bordered by wild rose bushes and sprawling ivy. That day, Margaret decided that a brief respite indoors would allow her to tidy up the modest cottage. Not wanting to leave Edwin unattended, she enlisted the help of Annabel, a trusted neighbor whose gentle manner and familiarity with the old manor made her a frequent visitor. Annabel carefully helped Edwin settle into the chair, ensuring that every cushion was fluffed and his favorite woolen shawl was draped snugly around him. Edwin, with his calm eyes and slow nod, appeared to appreciate the comfort of his routine. Margaret assured him that she would return shortly, promising to have tea prepared upon her return. With a soft smile and a nod of reassurance, Annabel stepped out, leaving the two siblings in what appeared to be a state of peaceful slumber. Yet as the minutes turned to half an hour, an unsettling quiet began to seep into the garden. Margaret, having completed her tasks at home, made her way back outside. To her shock and mounting horror, the chair sat empty. There was no sign of a struggle, no trampled rose bush, nothing that could hint at the departure of her beloved brother. Annabel, returning just after Margaret, could only share her disbelief. Together, they scoured the immediate vicinity, peering behind the hedges, checking the narrow winding paths that led to neighboring cottages, and even questioning the laborers working in the nearby fields. A swift and organized search soon engulfed Brambleton. Villagers formed search parties, combing every inch of the countryside, from the shadowy groves of ancient oak trees to the foggy banks of the local stream. The absence of Edwin was as baffling as it was inexplicable. Eyewitnesses later recounted how the normally bustling fields were strangely silent that afternoon, as if the land itself were holding its breath. Rumors began to circulate. Some whispered that Edwin's soul had been spirited away by otherworldly forces, while others mused that a hidden passage or underground labyrinth might have swallowed him whole. Local lore deepened the mystery. An old tale, passed down from one generation to the next, spoke of the wandering shade, a phantom that appeared on summer afternoons, claiming those it deemed too vulnerable or sorrowful. Some villagers recalled that in moments of quiet despair, they had seen a fleeting figure moving among the trees, a figure that seemed to vanish whenever one tried to follow its trail. Could it be that Edwin had been taken by this enigmatic presence? Even as the search parties delved deeper into the mystery, no rational explanation could account for the disappearance of a man who, despite his infirmities, would never have ventured far from the safety of his home. As days turned into weeks, the mystery of Edwin Carver's vanishing grew into a source of both local legend and sorrow. Margaret, heartbroken yet determined, refused to let despair win. She kept detailed notes, writing down every observation, every conversation with neighbors and witnesses. In her small ledger, she recorded accounts of strange lights flickering in the distant moors, inexplicable murmurs heard on moonless nights, and the eerie calm that sometimes fell over the village. Despite countless theories, from the possibility of a deliberate abduction to a mysterious natural phenomenon, none could shed definitive light on what had truly happened. The local magistrate even intervened, questioning villagers and commissioning a discreet inquiry. A renowned doctor from the nearby town of Elmwood was summoned to inspect the scene, only to declare that there was nothing physically amiss. The soil had been disturbed only by the careful, well-intentioned steps of the searchers, and there was no evidence of struggle or foul play. The case soon became a subject of academic debate, with scholars from distant cities coming to Brambleton to interview Margaret and study the perplexing details. Despite the intense scrutiny, Edwin's disappearance remained an enigma. In private, some villagers confessed their belief that a darker, hidden world might lie just beneath the surface of everyday life, a world where time and space blended in mysterious ways. Others believed that Edwin, whose life had been touched by the horrors of war, might have been drawn into a metaphysical journey, a final escape from a life of suffering. Margaret herself, though racked with grief, occasionally whispered that perhaps her brother was not lost forever, but had embarked on an extraordinary voyage into a realm beyond mortal comprehension. As years turned into decades, the story of Edwin Carver evolved into a local legend, retold by firesides and woven into the fabric of Brambleton's cultural memory. His empty chair became a symbol of unresolved sorrow and the inexplicable mysteries that sometimes mark human lives. Margaret's meticulous records, though never fully deciphered, were archived in the village's modest museum, a testament to a time when the boundaries between the known and the unknown seemed disturbingly thin. Over time, the disappearance of Edwin Carver spurred artistic and literary endeavors. Poets, inspired by his mysterious fate, composed verses that lamented the fleeting nature of human existence and the possibility of forces beyond our understanding. Painters captured the ghostly silhouette of an empty chair under a vast, melancholy sky, while storytellers recounted the tale to every new generation. The mystery of Edwin's vanishing continued to ignite the imagination of all who heard it, a reminder that even in the most familiar settings, the extraordinary can suddenly and irrevocably alter the course of life. Margaret would often be seen sitting on the front steps of their weathered cottage, gazing toward the garden where Edwin had last been seen. The memory of that fateful afternoon was etched deep within her soul, a bittersweet blend of love, loss, and an enduring hope that one day, the secrets of that day might be revealed. And so, the case of Edwin Carver remains one of Brambleton's most enduring mysteries, a story that blurs the line between history and myth, challenging all who hear it to ponder the inexplicable nature of disappearance. The disappearance of Clara Dawson. In the summer of 2005, 68-year-old Clara Dawson, a spirited and independent woman renowned for her love of the outdoors, embarked on what she hoped would be a healing journey near Emerald Lake, set deep within the rugged Cascade Mountains of Oregon. Clara, who had endured the profound loss of her longtime partner, found solace in the embrace of nature. The sprawling wilderness, with its towering pines and crystal-clear waters, had always been her refuge, a place where memories of the past could be mingled with the promise of renewal. Clara was a familiar figure among the local hiking community. Friends described her as both gentle and determined, a woman whose weathered face radiated quiet strength and resilience. In the wake of her recent personal tragedy, she had gradually begun to reclaim her love for the wild. For her, every hike was a meditation, a chance to reconnect with nature and find fragments of the joy that had once defined her life. On a clear August morning in 2005, Clara set out for a solo hike along a secluded trail that wound its way along the southern rim of Emerald Lake. With a small pack filled with essentials, a light lunch, a bottle of water, a worn map, and a cherished photograph of happier times, she ventured into the forest. The trail, bordered by wildflowers in riotous bloom and punctuated by the gentle murmur of distant streams, offered a sense of both serenity and isolation. The area was known not only for its natural beauty but also for its rich Native American history and the local legends of spiritual encounters. Clara's plan was to reach a quiet overlook where she could sit for a while, absorb the panoramic view of the lake, and perhaps even feel a connection to the spiritual energy that many believed permeated the area. Before setting off, she had exchanged warm farewells with members of her local hiking group, many of whom had made the annual pilgrimage to the lake for a series of spiritual retreats led by a charismatic elder known only as Red Hawk. Their gatherings were imbued with ritual and symbolism, a dance of remembrance for those who had passed and a celebration of the land's timeless presence. As the day unfolded, the weather, though bright, hinted at an approaching shift. Dark clouds gathered on the distant horizon, their edges tinged with a foreboding hue. Nevertheless, Clara pressed on, her determination unwavering. The trail soon narrowed, and the forest's ancient trees arched overhead like silent sentinels, their leaves whispering secrets of the ages. In moments of solitude, Clara found herself pausing to listen, to the rustle of the underbrush, to the occasional call of a distant bird, and to her own heartbeat, steady and resolute. By midday, Clara had reached the overlook. The view of Emerald Lake was breathtaking. Its glassy surface mirrored the stormy skies, and the distant peaks of the Cascades loomed like mythical guardians. She sat down on a weathered rock, unpacking her modest lunch and gazing out over the shimmering expanse of water. In that moment, it seemed as though time itself had paused, a serene interlude before the storm. But as the afternoon waned, an inexplicable restlessness began to tug at her spirit. Rather than returning to the familiar campgrounds where the local hiking group would later gather for their ceremonial reunion, Clara decided to explore a lesser-known path leading to a narrow, wooded ravine on the lake's southern shore. It was said that this hidden trail, known only to a few longtime locals, was steeped in legend and whispered about in hushed tones, a place where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual world blurred. 4 hours, Clara trekked through this secretive landscape. She documented her observations in a small journal, noting the peculiar arrangement of stones, the sudden emergence of wild ferns, and the inexplicable feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. As the path twisted and turned, the weather grew increasingly inclement. Rain began to fall in gentle, persistent drizzles, and a cool wind stirred the treetops, sending shivers along her spine. Yet, despite the ominous signals of nature, Clara's resolve held firm. By late afternoon, a dense fog rolled in, shrouding the path in a mysterious, ghostly veil. The landmarks she had noted so diligently faded into a spectral haze, and the familiar sounds of the forest became muted, as if the world had suddenly slipped into silence. Realizing that the weather was deteriorating rapidly, Clara decided it was time to retrace her steps. However, as she attempted to find the way back, the fog and rain conspired to obscure her trail entirely. In the ensuing hours, as dusk fell and the temperature dropped sharply, Clara's solitary figure was swallowed by the wilderness. Her phone had lost signal in the remote ravine, leaving her isolated from the outside world. By the time the local hiking group gathered at the camp, Clara was nowhere to be found. A frantic call to the authorities triggered an immediate and massive search and rescue operation. Rescue teams, comprising helicopters with thermal imaging, K-9 units, and volunteers from 3 neighboring counties, scoured every inch of the rugged terrain. Despite their relentless efforts, no trace of Clara was ever found. Her belongings, including her journal, remained lost in the wild. Interviews with fellow hikers and local elders only deepened the mystery. Some recalled hearing an otherworldly hum, while others spoke of fleeting shadows dancing at the edge of the fog. In the weeks and months that followed, theories abounded. Some believed that the terrain itself had shifted, swallowing Clara whole in a rare geological event. Others speculated that she had encountered a spiritual portal, a threshold between worlds, that had beckoned her into an alternate realm. The local Native American community, custodians of the ancient legends, spoke of the Whispering Veil, a fabled phenomenon believed to ensnare the souls of the unprepared. Even skeptics, who had initially dismissed the event as a tragic accident, found themselves grappling with the eerie, inexplicable details of her disappearance. Clara Dawson's case sparked a flurry of media attention and academic inquiry. Investigators combed through every piece of evidence: digital maps, weather records, and even the seemingly insignificant details of her last recorded footsteps. In the local archives, her hiking group's annual retreat records provided tantalizing clues, cryptic diary entries and sketches that hinted at the possibility of a hidden, supernatural presence in the wilderness. A renowned researcher of unexplained phenomena even traveled to the region, seeking to uncover whether ancient legends could offer any insight into the modern mystery. To this day, Clara's disappearance remains unresolved, a poignant reminder of the fragility of human existence amid the vast, indifferent forces of nature. The echo of her laughter in the rustling pines and the faded pages of her journal serve as eternal mementos of a woman whose spirit ventured too far into the unknown. Her memory lives on in the hearts of those who continue to search for answers in the silence of Emerald Lake, a place where the past and the present intertwine in enigmatic embrace. The Enigma of Derek Shaw. In July 2015, during the annual Highland Peak Marathon held in the scenic Rockies near Evergreen, Colorado, 67-year-old Derek Shaw participated in what was widely considered the most challenging race of the season. Derek, a seasoned outdoorsman with decades of experience navigating rugged terrains, was known for his unwavering determination and a heart full of adventure. His participation in the marathon was a testament to a lifetime of conquering nature's trials, yet nothing in his storied past could have prepared his friends, family, and fellow racers for the baffling events that would soon unfold. The marathon, which began in the quaint mountain town of Evergreen, was a celebrated event. It drew athletes from far and wide, each eager to test their mettle against the steep, unforgiving slopes of Highland Peak. On that fateful July day, as the first rays of dawn kissed the rugged foothills, hundreds of runners gathered at the starting line. The route, meticulously mapped out and widely publicized, was notorious for its brutal ascent, a 1.5-mile climb through a maze of winding trails, rocky outcrops, and sections so steep that only the bravest dared to attempt them. Derek Shaw's reputation as an expert in wilderness navigation was well known. Over the years, he had mastered not only the physical demands of such races but also the unpredictable moods of nature. On this day, his steady gait and measured breathing gave no indication of the extraordinary challenge ahead. The race began on schedule, and Derek quickly found himself among a tightly packed group of elite runners. With every step upward, the crowd's cheers faded into a distant murmur, replaced by the pounding of boots on stony ground and the whisper of the mountain wind. As the runners ascended, the weather began to turn. A sudden drop in temperature brought with it a heavy, unyielding mist that slowly blanketed the trail. The once visible markers and checkpoints were swallowed by the fog, and even the most experienced racers began to question the reliability of their familiar route. Derek, undeterred by the shifting conditions, maintained his focus. He had faced harsh elements before, and his confidence in his abilities remained unshaken. At a critical checkpoint near the summit, a narrow ledge with a steep drop to one side, witnesses reported seeing Derek briefly step aside, seemingly to catch his breath. This small pause, however, proved to be a harbinger of the inexplicable. After receiving a nod of encouragement from a fellow racer, Derek resumed his ascent. But as the minutes ticked by, he fell noticeably behind the group. By the time the rest of the runners began their descent toward the finish line, Derek's figure had all but vanished into the murk. Panic soon spread among the race officials and fellow athletes. Initially assumed to have simply slowed due to fatigue, it became clear that Derek was not present at any subsequent checkpoint. The race organizers immediately alerted local search and rescue teams. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging, canine units trained in wilderness tracking, and experienced mountaineers were dispatched to scour every inch of Highland Peak. They combed through narrow ravines, crossed icy ledges, and even followed faint traces in the soft earth where Derek might have stumbled. Witnesses later described the scene as surreal. Some recalled hearing only the echo of their own voices calling his name, while others spoke of an almost eerie silence that blanketed the mountain. One seasoned steward, who had overseen the marathon for years, recalled that even the normally noisy chatter of the crowd had given way to hushed tones of disbelief. As the hours passed, the search teams encountered no evidence of a struggle. No discarded water bottle, no footprints disrupted by a frantic dash, no personal items left behind. It was as if Derek had been swallowed whole by the mountain itself. Local legends quickly began to take shape in the wake of the tragedy. Some longtime residents speculated that Highland Peak was more than just a mountain. It was a living entity with moods and tempers, capable of protecting its secrets with ruthless precision. A few even claimed that the mountain had its own spirit, one that could choose to intervene in human affairs when it saw fit. For those who had grown up with the myths of the Rockies, Derek's disappearance seemed less an accident and more a deliberate act of nature, or even a supernatural occurrence. In the days that followed, investigators conducted exhaustive interviews with fellow racers, race officials, and local witnesses. They reviewed hours of video footage, scrutinized weather data, and retraced Derek's route in painstaking detail. Every theory, from a sudden fatal heart attack induced by the physical exertion to a bizarre, orchestrated abduction by unknown assailants, was considered and then gradually ruled out. The prevailing sentiment, however, was one of deep uncertainty. How could a man with decades of outdoor experience simply vanish on a course that was so closely monitored by hundreds of spectators? As the investigation wore on, Derek Shaw's story began to capture national attention. Newspapers, television shows, and online forums buzzed with speculation. A small group of amateur sleuths even traveled to Evergreen, determined to piece together the final moments of his life. They explored remote corners of Highland Peak, searching for clues that the official investigations had missed. Some of these enthusiasts uncovered hints that suggested natural phenomena might have played a role. A sudden, localized landslide, an unexpected collapse of a narrow trail, or even a rare meteorological event that could distort perception and erase physical evidence. Despite these extensive efforts, no definitive answer ever emerged. Derek's disappearance remained an enigma, a stark reminder of the inherent unpredictability of nature and the limits of human understanding. In time, his story was woven into the tapestry of local lore, a cautionary tale for all who dared to challenge the elements of Highland Peak. Memorials were erected in his honor, and annual gatherings were held to remember a man whose adventurous spirit had inspired countless others. For those who continue to hike the same rugged trails, Derek Shaw's legacy serves as both a tribute and a warning, a legacy enshrined in the mists and shadows of the Rockies, where the line between the known and the unknown remains perilously thin.